Hello, everyone. So the topic today is keep recruiting, navigating the newest email deliverability requirements in 2024. There's some pretty important changes. Warning in advance, it is going to get a little technical here. Hang with us because it is an important topic. Jen, I'll let you kind of kick us off here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. Like Jim said, we are talking about email deliverability this year and the changes that are coming. Jim is our CEO and co-founder here at Brokerkit, and I am Jenna. I work in growth for Brokerkit. And here at Brokerkit, we help residential real estate brokers ramp their growth by improving their agent recruiting and retention. We are diving into this topic and we're going to get into it. The challenge: email providers continue to tighten deliverability standards, disrupting consistent communication and hindering recruiting and retention efforts. So what does that look like for, us as folks that are trying to send our emails out and get them to the right spot? It means that we could have lower open rates, reduced engagement, decreased conversations, a damaged sender reputation, and wasted time. So all of these are things that need to be overcome, especially with these new requirements that are in place.
Let's start out with a little bit of a poll. Question number one, have you had any challenges with getting email delivered? And number two, have you heard about these February 2024 changes? So it looks like everybody's kind of said, the majority are saying yes, they're having challenges with email, and no, they have not heard about the upcoming changes, which is kind of what we expected, but wanted to poll the audience. So thanks for that. So with that, I'll turn it back to you to the promise.
Yes, so the promise. We're going to decode and conquer email deliverability standards for seamless recruiting and retention success. This is going to get technical, so please stick with us. These are things that you have to know about and are going to impact your email starting in February. So it's going to get a little technical. Hang on with us. We're going to break it down, and Jim will take you through so much good information and how to get this going and get this started.
One kind of common theme you're going to hear is rifle shot versus shotgun shot. Relevant messages that are very targeted to people that they're going to be interested in getting, and they're going to have a much higher response rate to. And the reason is, so the big email providers, Google and Microsoft, we'll talk about their standards, but there's also a little bit of ambiguity of what lands in the inbox, because they're all using kind of AI and machine learning to consider what is spam. And what's going to train it is, are people engaging with the content? Do they find it useful? Are they engaging? Are they opening it, replying, all those kinds of things, right? So when you're focused on sending people relevant messages they're interested in receiving, more of a rifle shot versus shotgun shot, it's going to really help your engagement and increase the likelihood massively of your emails getting in the inbox. So back to you, Jenna, on the changes.
Like we had mentioned, this is starting in February of this year. These just got added to the article we had referenced in our webinar last year. And so these are new guidelines that you absolutely have to know about, especially as Jim mentioned, if you're sending bulk emails that would be anything over 5,000 a day. And these are the standards for Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, really Microsoft and Google being the big ones.
Our webinar in July covered this exact same article. They updated this since then with specific requirements that right here very clearly say February 2024. Now, it doesn't say a specific date, doesn't say the end, doesn't say the beginning. We don't feel like in conversations with people, we haven't seen that a lot of people realize these are coming and seen much PR on them.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
One of the biggest is there's two separate requirements depending on whether you're sending over 5,000 emails a day or under. So the bar, once you send 5,000 emails a day, it gets higher, okay? And we're going to kind of explain the details behind this, but something to consider is trying to manage to that, right? Now, they don't say over what time frame. Is it any one day, 5,000, or is it on average? The Google guidelines are not super clear, but you should maybe assume if you're sending in any given day over 5,000 emails, they're going to be following the more stringent requirements when managing the deliverability of your emails. If you look at this in the guidance they gave, and I'm gonna explain what these are, but DKIM and SPF, these are two ways to authenticate. And what's driving these is it's essentially to prevent spoofing of emails. Same thing kind of happened with calling and texting. What ended up happening with calling and texting is, like, texting in September, there were carrier regulations to prevent spoofing because it started happening, meaning people were impersonating numbers. These are technical ways to set up to make sure your email can't be spoofed by spammers that send emails through you, right? And think of the risk there, right? If you're a brokerage, you're dealing with high volume transactions. If somebody could send email through your domain, and phishing emails acting as if they were you, there's potentially ways that they could hijack a transaction or something like that, right? So it takes some time to set all this up, but it's in everybody's best interest that these things happen. So if you look at it, DKIM and SPF, so in the set of guidelines that Google released in November, which were new, basically in November, they said you need to have one or the other setup. And our last webinar kind of talked through that. Now, if you're sending under 5,000 emails a day, it's still one or the other. But if you're sending over 5,000, it is both now. That's what's new in February. DKIM is essentially an encryption key to make sure only you can send emails, because they can't encrypt it to spoof you, basically. And SPF is you authorizing what providers can actually send emails on your behalf. DMARC is basically a test as to whether these two are valid, okay? So under 5,000, this is still optional, but recommended. It is now required for if you're sending over 5,000 that you have DMARC turned on, essentially, which is new. The next one is definitely new. And this is we're going to show you how Google measures this. They have a tool that you can set up and look at this called Google Postmaster, but they've given specific guidance on what are acceptable thresholds. And it's the same whether you're sending under or above 5,000, but it's basically 0.1% of the target is 0.1% of your emails are flagged as spam and never over 0.3. And that's just watch the dot there, right? Because it's 0.3, it's not 3%. So that's essentially like 1/3%. So that's new. The next one is, and this has an impact, I think, on a lot of products too. We implemented email sending domains. We'll show you this a year ago. Prior to that, we allowed people to send through our domain on behalf of their domain. We added sending domains, which allow you to send through your own domains a year ago. Most of our customers have set it up. A lot of tools have set this up. That's really going to be necessary moving forward. Any tool that's allowing you to send on behalf of another domain, it's not going to work, essentially. And so there's a lot of tools out there. And the tool, if you ever see an email and if you look in the headers and it says like sent via this domain on behalf of this domain, that's kind of what it is. But this is the technical verbiage as to why that's not going to be allowed, but it's not going to be possible in the future. And then there's also a new requirement around one-click subscribe, which is optional under 5,000. Above 5,000, that will be required. And just for the folks that are Brokerkit users, we're going to make sure kind of these technical ones are addressed. The spam one, like we're going to give you the capabilities and we're going to show you how to do all these things. But, and if we're working, you need to think about this in other products too, because this is going to impact pretty much everything. Okay, so let's get into kind of the 5 hot principles on how to tackle this and get ahead of these changes. Number one, many of you and most of you are already doing this, but there's some people that aren't. You need a custom email sending domain moving forward. This is if you're doing bulk emailing. The bottom line is, and we're going to kind of talk about how, but like you can't comply with these requirements if you don't control the DNS settings for that domain. Okay. The way DNS is, think of the internet, your domain is, okay, if your website is, brokerage, acmebrokerage.com, the DNS is your domain. If you have a website, it's on a certain IP address, which is the IP address of the website. The DNS is what points, when somebody types in the browser, acmebrokerage.com, it points it to a web, like an actual IP address. So the traffic gets routed to your actual website to resolve, okay? So what this means is the DNS, which sets that up, it's typically like if you bought the domain from like GoDaddy, there's a bunch of them out there, Namecheap. Also, when you're setting up a Microsoft 365 or Google account, it lets you get domains sometimes. Basically, it's those settings. If you can't control that for the domain, you really are not going to be able to comply with this stuff moving forward when you're doing bulk emailing. So essentially what it means is you're going to be limited to probably one-on-one emails out of your email account unless you're using a custom domain, okay? Some of the key ones impacted are going to be free email domains. So that's going to be like gmail.com. You can go send through your Gmail account. There's not going to be any issue. But if you try to use that same Gmail address to bulk mail through out of like, it could be Brokerkit or it could be like MailChimp or something, you're not going to be able to do it because the email, you can't control the DNS settings for gmail.com and therefore you can't comply and therefore those emails will not get delivered. And it's a little uncertain how hard and fast this is going to be and how soon, They've just said in their guidance February. The same goes for franchise emails, right? Like if you're sending out a franchise emails that you don't control and you're using them in other tools, you're going to have challenges with that. So the solution that we recommend, and most are already doing this, but is get a custom email domain and set up either a Google Apps or Microsoft 365 account for that domain. Just if you don't have one, what we recommend is start with Google Workspace for simplicity. It tends to be easier to configure. So let me just kind of show you here. So it's just workspace.google.com. You go here, you can essentially set up, it's like Gmail, but it's a company Gmail account, and you can set up a custom domain, which you can't with a free Gmail account. You do need a paid subscription for this, but it lets you select the domain and set it up as part of it. It's fairly simple, but that would be kind of our recommendation if you need to set something up. The other thing is, and this is going to go for, recruiting, it could go for sales too, consider setting up a separate domain for bulk emailing. Okay. Now note that like and this works in Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, one email can have multiple domains and you can send from them. You can set them up so people can send through different domains. Just know that, and this goes for Brokerkit, it goes for any other tools. If you're single signing on through an email account, it's only going to let you single sign in through the primary one. But you could have a separate domain, and you could have, for instance, if you have a recruiter, have them, instead of acmebrokerage.com, maybe that's your main one. Maybe you have a separate variation of it that like your recruiter's using, and maybe even a separate one for working with buyers and sellers, right? But think of like keeping these kind of separate because it makes it a little easier to comply when you're not using everything through one email domain. But that said, there's also one other thing to consider in Google's requirements. What they're saying is the same domain that you're mailing through should really have a public website on it, and the SPF and DKIM points to the same domain as that website. And this is something they're doing to just confirm it's legitimate, right? And this is to avoid spoof, like for instance, you've probably seen this with emails and texts where like people will impersonate Wells Fargo with some variation in it, right? That probably doesn't resolve to a real website, or they'll set up a phishing site. But like this is one thing that they'll consider it more legitimate if it has a website attached. So if you are using separate domains, make sure it points to a site. But theoretically, you could have, separate kind of, and it could be a separate subdomain. If you're acmebrokerage.com, one could be, like careers.acmebrokerage.com for recruiting. And then also the other one would be www, and that's on your sales. And also you can, when setting up these sending domains that we're about to get into, use subdomains. So you could keep acmebrokerage.com for everything, and then use www for some things and careers for some things, or things like that. So then let's talk about, okay, so assuming you have this, now let's talk about how to set it all up. Now, this is going to go for all kind of tools, but I'm going to show you how to do this in Brokerkit, but this is going to go for, all tools moving forward, essentially. So that you're doing bulk emailing. Again, one-to-one emailing, not as impacted here. Now, the quality, a lot of the things still impact, like when we get into sending targeted messaging, make sure it's relevant, manager engagement, that's all going to matter also still for one-on-one, but the technical side really matters when you're doing the bulk emailing. Okay, so setting up SPF and DKIM, okay? So this is where, we get into kind of the acronyms. So if I go into a Brokerkit account and I go to account settings, we released this a year ago. Most of our customers have kind of already set this up. Now note that using Brokerkit in the past, if you didn't set these up, we were sending it on behalf of your domain via clients.getbrokerkit. Through the end of the month, that's still going to be available, but we're going to be ratcheting it down. We did ratchet down the number of emails you could send through that domain to down to 1,000. That will probably keep dropping it also. It's a little uncertain when the deliverability issues are going to happen, but we strongly recommend everybody, and it's in Brokerkit or any other tool, if you're sending on behalf of, like, start, get to work on setting up your custom domains. I'm in this Brokerkit account, so I'm setting up a couple domains here. Think of like, I'm setting up this domain. I already have a Google Workspace account. agentrecruiters.com is the domain in there, and my email there is jim@agentrecruiters.com. What I'm doing is, if I want to send through that same email out of Brokerkit, right? Like if I come in, let me just start from scratch. I'm going to do single sign-on. and I'm going to single sign in through it. And just keep in mind, it's got to be the same. That has to be the primary email for that user, even though each user can have multiple emails they can send through. I'm going to go to account settings, email here. Now, let's see, I'm in the wrong account. Let me switch to this account. Once I'm in here, then I'm going to set up agentrecruiters.com. So to add it in Brokerkit, you just type it in, and then it's going to be added. And if you click the gear, it's going to give you the settings. Now, these settings are what we're talking about, SPF and DKIM. That's essentially right here. This is your DKIM right here. And then this is your SPF record. Now, if your domain is in GoDaddy, you're going into your GoDaddy account for agentrecruiters.com and you're adding records. If you're not sure how, reach out to GoDaddy support. They can help you with this. But you're adding a TXT record with this in here. You can copy, paste it in your GoDaddy account. Your SPF record, if you do not have one, you're copying and adding it. If you already have one, then you're just adding in this right here, include Mailgun, which is our email service provider, okay, to make sure and what this means is this is the encryption key saying emails that are sent through this domain are valid, which Google will check, so it can't be impersonated. And this is you basically telling Google, I have authorized that tool to send on my behalf, okay? Now, when you're setting it up, the tracking record, this is not related to deliverability, but you need to set this up so that if you want to be able to track clicks on emails, it's for click and open tracking. Now, down here under advanced settings, DMARC, this is the third one, okay? We have it under advanced settings because it's not mandatory under 5,000. If you're sending over 5,000, you need to do this. This one, just be careful with it. Basically, what you're doing is when you add this record, it's another TXT record to add into your account. This is the host name. This is the data. GoDaddy will help you add this. What this is saying is, like, if an email is sent from agentrecruiters.com into a Gmail box, Gmail is going to basically look at DMARC, see if you have one. If you have one, it's going to basically tell it what to do with those emails if they don't comply. So it's going to look, do they have a valid SPF and DKIM, these two things? If they do not, and this is the DMARC, if they do not, then you're telling it what to do with the emails. None means do nothing. If the word quarantine is here, it means send it to spam. There's a third option to just drop the emails too. So this is configurable, but you have to have that if you're sending over 5,000 now. Now, if you're sending under 5,000, it's not. Just be careful that when you add this, that everything's kind of set up properly. That's why we label it advanced, because this could cost, if things aren't configured right, it's going to cause things to get dropped. Now, if you're a customer and you have a lot of questions, I just want to point out, in our training calendar here, we have office hours where you can jump on a call with our team and they can help you set this stuff up. And if you're not a Brokerkit customer and you want to sign up, we'll help you. This is part of our onboarding. We'll get all this set up for you, because you realize that this is a lot of detail. Okay, so once you've added that into your GoDaddy account, then you want to hit authenticate. Okay. This is the fourth set of records, which is receiving records, which is your MX records, which is how to handle inbound email to that domain. These are optional. Okay. This is more an advanced configuration. The Google guidance doesn't say to do this. It is something that could potentially help, but I would recommend, unless you know what you're doing, to stay away from these essentially. Once you set it up, you set authenticate, it'll basically check that all the settings are right, and it'll tell you verified if not. If it doesn't say verified, it's not set up right. If you're not sure, again, schedule a session with office hours, we'll jump on. Now, this applies to kind of all your tools you're doing bulk emailing, because you could be sending emails. If you're using that same domain, you could have that in your sales CRM too, right? Or potentially some other email like MailChimp or something like that, right? Where you're sending through. You need to kind of do all of these things, between all those for any kind of bulk emailing moving forward through those domains. So that's how to set up your SPF and DKIM in Brokerkit and how to do it in general. Again, one or the other is okay. If you're under 4,000, you need to do one or the other. If you want to just send straight out of Google or Microsoft, your account doesn't matter. If you're bulk emailing under 5,000, one or other. If over 5,000, both. There's another one that we haven't seen as impactful, but Google also has it in their article, which is set up forward and reverse DNS. So I said, your domain resolves to an IP address. Okay. So you type acmebrokerage.com, that goes to an IP address, which goes to your website, or an email server. Okay. Well, what this is saying is they want you to have it work in reverse too, meaning there's a way to do a lookup from IP to domain that it should be set up that way too, essentially. And this website will allow you to do that. Again, if you aren't sure to do that, that's a question, get with GoDaddy or whoever has your domain. The last one, this is going to be built into kind of our tool Brokerkit. You don't need to do anything, others will. But basically, all email has to be encrypted now. This was a recommendation in the past. It is mandatory, meaning like essentially from your email provider, from their server out to the Google account, that traffic has to be encrypted. And the reason is so that there's no way for someone to intercept that traffic in the middle and like essentially read the email. So it's another security thing. We're handling that for any Brokerkit customers. I would say most email providers are probably doing this, but that will cause issues too if it's not set up properly in whatever you're using to do bulk emailing. So those are how to set the ins and outs of how to set that up. Number two, how you send emails and the volume. There's a few, and this goes back to the Google article. I'm going to paraphrase what they're saying, okay? But number one, consistent sending versus spike. Avoid like infrequent, huge blasts of email, okay? Think of like consistent sending without huge spikes. If you do a huge spike, it's likely that, and like think of it, right? So if somebody's trying to do phishing emails for Wells Fargo, there's no emails, and then suddenly there's a huge number of emails. Like it seems suspicious essentially to kind of the bots or the AI for Gmail. Like, why is there's never been any blast like this in the past, suddenly there is. So think of like batches, right? Like smaller targeted batches that are being sent consistently versus not much email and then huge spikes, right? And that goes back to the once a quarter send a newsletter to everybody in your MLS, probably not a great idea, consistent batches to people. The next one is gradual increases, right? If you haven't been doing any bulk emailing and you want to start, don't just immediately go in and send 50,000 from 0 to 50,000, right? It's like work your way up. So it's consistent, but kind of gradually ramping to where you want to be. So maybe batches that are increasingly bigger through time. The next one is if you add a new tool, it doesn't have a reputation as a sender yet, even if it's the same domain. So if you're using acmebrokerage.com, you were using it in, I don't know, like KV Core, but then suddenly you add it to MailChimp. It's the providers know that it's coming from a different tool, and they are going to like consider it kind of a new domain almost, right? So just consider a slow startup with new infrastructure. So even if you have gradual sending, right, in your domain, but then you add a new tool, consider doing gradual ramping on that one too. The next one is just like, don't send too frequent, essentially, to the point of annoyance to people. Think about, and this goes back to kind of I'll say the golden rule a number of times here, but like, which is, do unto others what you would want them to do unto you. Like, think of like, what would be a point at which it would be annoying to you to receive too many in like a certain time frame. Think about that and respect what they would want, right? And the next one, engagement driven growth. As you're growing, keep an eye on, like engagement that you're getting and clicks and opens and things like that and replies, right? And if you do big bursts, right, and you don't see a lot of replies, then you probably ramped too quickly, essentially, right? So kind of watch it as it's tied to that whole gradual increase, especially with new infrastructure, kind of like do batches, increasing size, watch the kind of engagement on it and then increase, but don't start with huge spikes. You don't see anything and you're worried, right? So kind of keep an eye on that. Okay, so that's hot principle number 2, consistently send and gradually increase. Third one is just more targeted, okay, in terms of this is like the list you're sending to. So avoid spray and pray. Generic emails that are like, especially like, the ones that really get hit unsubscribe a lot these days are HTML newsletter style emails, right? Sending that out. It used to be pretty traditional that you would send out some kind of newsletter email every now and again, whether it's kind of quarterly or monthly. That if you're doing that, just make sure that it has very, very high value in it, or it's going to get a lot of unsubscribes, which then is going to hurt here, right? So what tends to work better is, again, back to the rifle versus shotgun shot. So sending personal messages to people, right? Number one, warm versus cold outreach where possible. So if there's a way to send, interactions with people, like certainly like follow up with someone, you meet somebody at an event, you talk to them, you're following up, that's kind of warm. There's been some kind of interaction in the past. They've signed up for a training event. They've signed up for kind of a lead magnet. Or you're reaching out to, their birthday and you're reaching out about their birthday. It kind of ties into event driven. Event driven is they're kind of related, right? But like a warm could be a warm lead, or it could be just some reason that it's not cold, right? Cold would assume I've had no interactions with this person. I'm going to just mail them out of the blue, essentially. So whenever you can do warm, try to use a warm angle. Now, a variation of that is event-driven communication. So think of this. I'm going to give you recruiting examples, but examples would be, okay, if you know their birthday, reach out on their birthday. If you know when their license expiration date is, hey, from state licensee records, I know it's, you're up for renewal on this date. Are you getting the evaluator brokerage? Is it a good time to talk? Is it reaching out to co-op agents? Like somebody just did a deal with one of your agents, you're reaching out to congratulate them. There was a specific event that you're reaching out to. It's following up on an appointment. It's following up on, you saw them at a board event. You saw them at a Nomad house. But it's like some specific event you're following up on. There's going to be a reason you're following up. It's going to be logical to them why you are. If you do that in a personal way, that it's much more likely that they're going to like the email, engage with it, reply, and therefore it's helping your domain reputation versus hurting. The next one is multi-touch, multi-channel. So this is kind of a more generic, or I guess a little more general, but like don't just rely on email. Multi-channel means when you're interacting with people, use multiple channels. So email, call, text, and social media. So social media, like LinkedIn, like they're going to go through. They're not going to get flagged as spam. The read rate and response rate on Facebook or LinkedIn is going to be much higher than email. Texting the same, right? Don't use all of them. Think of the emails. At the end of the day, if you're recruiting someone, can go for sales too. You want to have a conversation. Emails, texts, social really should be warming people up for a conversation. You can always try to call them, right? I mean, the response rate in real estate's, people pick up their phone more than any other industry, basically, when you call them. But all of these, right? And it's kind of a mix. Don't just rely on email. And then multi-touch, follow up through time, essentially. So the next one, quality of contact list. So one of the benefits of being in real estate is you can get the MLS data, like from a Realytics or Brokermetrics or something like that, and you can get a current agent roster. The thing that I would say that's pretty good, but what I've seen is some people like they get, they had a Market View broker subscription like 3 years ago. They canceled their subscription. They're still using the same list. Well, if you look at kind of the attrition rate in the industry, a lot of people are leaving each year. And if you're mailing people that are not in the business anymore, they're more likely to kind of hit the unsubscribe because it's not going to be relevant for them. Keep your lists current, okay? Also, when people move from one brokerage to the other, their email could change, right? And then that could cause a bounce if you're mailing it. For us, if you have the Realytics integration, it's automated updates, you set it up, schedule it, boom, just runs every month. It's going to make sure that you have the current emails because we match off agent ID or email, their email might change, their agent ID stays the same, then it'll just add the email. And so you'll always have that. Now, if you have emails that came from another source, like from events or something like that, or they've been out there for a while, there are some tools. Never Bounce is probably the most famous. You can use it. You can upload the list and then it'll tell you which ones are not valid anymore. We strongly recommend that you delete, archive those out so that you're not mailing emails that will bounce, because that has a big impact on your reputation, because then the provider is going to wonder whether it's like they have really a valid list. The next is opt-ins. If you can get people to sign up for things, right, and add the checkbox in there, they're opting in, like whether that's, right, or you're having events. It could be social events. It could be training events, board events. Get people to opt in. Any kind of lead magnets, if you have some kind of training content that you want people to attend, get them to kind of opt in, right? And then, just be respectful of opt-outs. People may hit unsubscribe, or they may just reply back and say, like, I don't please remove me from your list. Just be respectful of that. Okay. And then the other one is just like anybody who's like disengaged. If you've sent this person like 20 emails, not even 20, like if you consistently send them emails and they never read or open them, consider archiving them. Or, just don't follow up with them on email, use other channels like social media or text or call. So that's hot principle number 3, avoid spray and pray. Number 4, this goes back to the content. So back to, and by the way, the AI and machine learning is used in determining what ends in the inbox. It's really like how people engage with it, okay? The same thing happens, by the way, on Indeed when you post job postings and on Google search. So think of Google, they started with search. They want to make sure the best content is at the top. When you search on a given keyword, they want the most relevant content to come up in the search results. Well, the way they do that is they track engagement, meaning, there's 10 links here. The one that's going to move up is the one that people click, not just read, they click through, they stay on the page longer periods of time, and they don't just immediately hit the back button, right? That's how they can kind of detect this is more relevant. It's going to start pushing it up. Same thing is for content and your email inbox. They're using kind of similar algorithms. So, and this goes for even if you're not doing bulk sending, right? Your emails can still end up in spam if you are sending it straight out of a Google or Microsoft account, but not really following these practices, right? So number 1, follow the golden rule. Send emails you would want to receive, okay? Make sure that you're try to add value to people. Number 2, personal and context aware. We talked about event driven. That's why it works better. Reaching out if there's some kind of context that, it's not out of the blue. There's some reason that you're reaching out. Even if it's like, I called you, I'm following up on the call, see if you got it, something like that. Just try to have some kind of context that's logical for why you're reaching out. Event driven helps with that context. Personal. And this kind of ties to the next one, conversational versus informational. We believe you need to be very clear on an email whether it's going to be conversational or informational. And this goes back to style of email, okay? Like HTML, newsletter style emails, those are typically, consider those informational kind of emails. Short messages that look like they're sent from a person as a conversational message. So think about it, right? What informational works well for is if you have a upcoming event, an email, like inviting them to that with some nice graphics and a button with a clear call to action that goes to like your Eventbrite website or whatever, some landing page where they're going to sign up for that event. That works well for that. If it's to training material that they can sign up for, that would be, or some kind of lead magnet, that information works really well for that. In those, try to have only one clear call to action. We'll talk about that later. If you have like 5 and they don't know what to do, they're much more likely to delete, right? And if people are engaging, Google's gonna, and the other providers are gonna think it's more relevant. Conversational is gonna be short messages look like they were sent by a person. Think of short messages, emphasizing short, 1 to 3 messages end on a question. Always try to end on a question. And conversational is really, I'm trying to start a conversation with this person, right? So like an example would be cooperating agent, right? One of your agents did a transaction with this person. You're reaching out to congratulate them. Hey, saw that you just closed this deal. Congrats on that. And then maybe it's short, right? It's not like throwing in a bunch of like content or something like that. It looks like you personally are sat down. It could be bulk email, could be automated, but it needs to look like you send it as a person. You wrote it as if you would, if you were sitting down to send it one-on-one. And on a question, hey, do you love to talk about your goals for 2024? Do you have time to jump on a call? And just, and end on that question, right? The goal is try to start a conversation. Okay, the next one, clear sender identification. You make it look like it's from a person, right? Even if it's like some shared email box, give it a name. Like generic names where it's unclear who it's from, like people are gonna worry about that, right? Give your, have a made up name for someone that is managing that inbox. So it seems like there's an actual person on the other end. Next one, clear subject line, concise, clear subject lines. Jen, if you could throw that link in for people into the chat, this is a little subject line tester that'll help score it using kind of AI. It works pretty good. So good subject lines, right? So that's I mean, if your open rate's low, what you need to focus on is your subject line, getting people to open the email, which is really, you got to have a compelling subject line to get them to open it. The next one is concise paragraphs. We talked about kind of like, not huge emails. People don't love getting huge emails. They tend to not read them. You have to assume most people are reading this on a phone, by the way, these days. So short emails work better because you can see it kind of at a phone. They're not going to scroll very long. Like on a phone, long emails, they're just going to, delete or archive or unsubscribe. So concise works great. Conversational, this is another tool that Jenna can throw in the chat to give you, that helps you grade your emails and improve the content so that it's gonna score better, and the bots, so to speak, are gonna like it more. By the way, the folks that are using the campaigns out of Brokerkit's library, we've already done all these things on the campaigns. They're written to follow these styles, okay? Now, I would always still tailor them, take them, copy them. We added our AI assist that makes it really easy to copy them with your unique value proposition, your market, but know that all of these things we're telling you about, we've already done with the campaigns in our library. The next one clear call to action, or CTA. So like in a newsletter, it should be one button that says like sign up, like really short, right? If it's to come to a training event or something like that. If it is a conversational email, it's end on a question, only one question, don't add 3. If you add 3, you'll get no answers. If you add 1 question, you'll get an answer. If you have 3 questions, send them in sequentially. Ask the first question first, right? And just get them to reply, start the conversation, and then you can take it up from there. Never more than 1. It greatly reduces there's a saying in marketing, the confused mind never buys. If you force people to make a decision, they will not make a decision. So that goes for your website. Don't have 3 buttons to get them to sign up, but it also goes for an email. If you ask 3 questions, they're like, I don't know which one to answer, unsubscribe. Like the next one, big attachments or huge images can impact this. So keep that in mind. Don't put them in conversational emails. Images can work in informational mails, but like shrink them down to a reasonable size. Okay. And if you need a tool like Canva can help you, if you're not sure how to do it, a tool like Canva can help you shrink the size of the file. And then just, keep an eye on content, right? So if you're the broker, keep an eye on what your team is sending, right? Because it's going to impact everyone. And then optimize sending time. We'll talk about that more, but there's some tools out there. Send it at a time people are most likely to read it and respond to it, versus, which is probably right if you're sending this to an agent, you assume like when they're going to be out of the office at showings, don't send it then. Send it at other times, which is probably early or late, weekends. Sunday's probably not a great day today to send it to agents. Saturday probably is. Principle number 5, monitor your domain. Okay, so there's some tools out here we want to go through. Let's see. So monitor your domain regularly. Number 1, set up Google Postmaster. This is I would say do this for sure if you're sending over 5,000 a day. If you're sending less, probably not as necessary, but recommended still. So it's just postmaster.google.com. This is another one where you have to have access to your DNS settings to set it up, because it's going to ask, that's how it authorizes it. But I'll just give you an example. So they gave in that article specific spam thresholds. This is the first time this has been in writing anywhere, like what they're expecting to see. For Google, this is the tool that you can measure this. So I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to go to one of our domains. This is u.getbrokerkit.com is for like internal emails. Like if you do a password or reset or something like that, they're going to be sent from this domain. So in this, you can basically see what percent of what was the user reported spam rate by day. And you can look over different periods of time. You can go in and look at it. So this is how you know how you're doing against these thresholds, is this tool. Okay. Now other tools will guess what these things are, because they can track how many, like if you send through Brokerkit or out of like MailChimp or something like that, you see how many were unsubscribed, but you still don't really know. That's your mail server's idea of what people hit unsubscribes on. That's not Google's true perception of what they're sending spam. So this is the true authoritative source. And if you're okay here, this is more important than probably the Microsoft and the Yahoo ones. They all have guidelines. This one is probably the most stringent, the bulk of the mail. Monitor engagement. So just keep an eye on, you can do this in Brokerkit. with engagement, our engagement tracking filters do it within whatever tools. Keep an eye on bounces. Yeah, bounces, like if you're using Brokerkit, I mean, I'll show you specifically, like the bounces is probably the most important one to keep an eye on, especially with older lists. So if you go to engagement, email bounces, you can change your time frame, find those contacts. Let me remove this filter, and then you can bulk select them. And then we have our archive bucket here. You can move them to archive. Definitely recommend that. And so archived essentially is just like if you're doing like imports off like Realytics or something like that, you can delete. You can delete here, but if you delete and you have like the Realytics integration turned on with monthly updates with the MLS data, they could get added back. Archived means they'll match an update over there and not jump back into recruiting or retention. Or it could be agents that left that you don't want to rehire. If you want to rehire, move them back to recruiting. You don't want to rehire, move them to archived. Okay, just pull them out. Let's see. Keep an eye on those clicks and opens. Same thing you can use in Brokerkit, kind of the filters. Keeping an eye on those. Other tools, you want to keep an eye on that, and then just how much is getting delivered. So then the other one is, this is a little more kind of esoteric, but if you're doing a lot of bulk sending, especially of big amounts, you definitely want to keep an eye on whether your domain ends up on a blacklist. This right here, this tool, again, this is pretty technical, this MX toolbox, they have a lot of different tools, but you can type in your domain, check the health here, and I think there's even a paid service where you can sign up for alerts, and you can see if you're on blacklist, and they have different diagnostics out there, but you can see if your domain is on any blacklist. Note that if you see that you're on a blacklist, all of the websites will just Google the name of the site that blacklisted you. There'll be weird ones, like one is called like Sorbs that you'll see. So if you Google Sorbs, spam and open array blocking system, you go to their website, they'll be somewhere on their website, right there, delisting. There'll be some process for you to dispute that your domain is in there. So it's likely, once it's blacklisted, not good. It's definitely going to impact your deliverability, but it's recoverable. You need to find what sites blacklisted it with that tool we just showed you. Jenna will throw it in the chat. Look it up and then find that site, and then read the process on how to get delisted from their blacklist, essentially. And there'll be a little bit of a delay, but you can do that. So keep an eye on that. So that is hot principle number 5. And then we'll just go back and do key takeaways. So number 1, you need a custom sending domain. So let's just start with, right now, if you have a custom sending domain in Brokerkit, you should be good on this one. If you go into account settings and the domains that you're mailing out of are set up here and verified. Okay, that's the key. And it's really like, if you're under 5,000, it's these 2 records. If it's over 5,000, you need DMARC set up also. Okay, the equivalent in other tools. That's the big takeaway on number 1. Number 2, send and gradually increase. We're not really doing it for you, right? In Brokerkit, and it's up to you how you decide to do things. But what we would recommend moving forward is think of batches, right? So an example would be, okay, I'm going to go in and find all the agents in my market. So I'm starting with, okay, in this account, this has data from Chicago in it. Okay, I'm starting with 31,000. I don't want to blast 31,000. I want to drill it down to, okay, next I'm going to look at everybody that sold between 6 and 12 units in the last 12 months because they're a good fit for us. Then I'm going to focus on people that, these are going to be, if you have the Realytics data here, more specific. People in a certain zip code, people maybe by office. I'm gonna look at a specific office here, or I'm gonna send it to, by date when they joined the MLS. I'm gonna drill it down from, I just cut it from 31,000 to 5,500, but let's look for switch risk red, which is the AI and machine learning from Realytics. They're 10x more likely to switch brokers in the next 3 months. You just cut it to 41. That is a rifle shot, okay? But these are gold, right? You don't want to send generic messages, send them highly targeted messages. So batches, or use a variation of these and send batches weekly. Don't send one email to 31,000, break it into 100 a week or something like that, and Try to be more event driven, birthdays, co-op agents, license expiration dates, some follow up on a certain date from an appointment. Like that's what all of these filters are for, is to help you segment your list and batch it. Okay. Avoid spray and pray. This is going to be, again, this is going to be like targeted list, right? Like it's kind of tied to what I just said. So, be targeted, right? Don't do huge bulk blasts with the same message. Do event driven, personalized. Use one of the filters to figure out why, right? One of your agents referred them. You send it and say, like, Jane referred to you. What is their production value? Where are they in the process? Naming specifically. I know we met with you on X date. Where they came in. Did they come in from WiseHire, or did they come in from like a Facebook ad? Which campaigns you've sent them in the past, where they are, right? Send it and specify, make it context aware as follow-up from that thing. Engagement, who's clicking, who's opening, send video emails, see who's watching them by the clicks. Specific production, hey, we work with people with these, type of average sales prices. Look for people based on changes up or down, send relevant messages on that. Production, these Realytics ones, all of the AI machine learning ones, location-based, when they started, when their birthday is, last met with them, last activity, and when they were created in the system. So think of all those things, right, as a way to do that. Carefully craft content. So all of these, if you're using campaigns in our library, we've already kind of gone through these guidelines. If you are using kind of custom content, or even we've seen issues with people using content from their franchises, especially that's like real marketing-esque looking emails. A lot of the franchises provide emails and they have their marketing department do it. They haven't really been in a practical recruiting world. A lot of marketing is not super practical, meaning it's very focused on like brand awareness versus like actual generating leads. And the way that you write communications to generate a lead or an appointment is going to be very different than branding. Branding related stuff has to be really, really good. Or if it's not a clear purpose and it's high quality, that can cause issues. And then keep an eye on your domain. This is something we'll explain the tools. We'll show you how, but those are things you're going to need to do on your own. Okay, so that kind of recaps. That was a lot of information. Again, if you're a Brokerkit customer, Jenna put the link in there. You can sign up for office hours. We'll help you out with this. Hit us with any questions you have. Okay, so for the people that are not customers that are on here, because we have kind of a mix, if you do sign up this month, we will waive your setup fee for Brokerkit and we'll help you during our onboarding process, set all this stuff up. You can go to getbrokerkit.com and sign up for a demo, or take a screenshot of the QR code. It'll go to it, but just you go to our website, sign up, get a demo. We'll show you how to do this. We'll get you started. And we have a pretty robust onboarding process. If you go to the pricing page and look down, you can see our kind of onboarding options here. During that, we're going to help you get all this stuff set up, as well as talk about getting texts and calls delivered and many other things. So I think that's it for today in terms of the content. Now it's just Q&A. Any questions anyone has on any of this? So maybe it's because this is our second go around here. We have some people that have already kind of seen our first version. We had some changes. We wanted to make sure what we covered. Thank you. There are no more questions at this time. I think we've hit them all. And if you do have questions and you're a customer, hit us up on support, jump on office hours. We'll help you get it set up. If you're not currently a customer, we can help you set all this up and make sure your emails get delivered. And then somebody just said, can we get the slides? We're going to mail out a copy of the video. Is going to be posted to the Brokerkit YouTube channel. For those of you that are customers, let me just show you in our menus here. If you go to Help Center, Brokerkit Academy webinars, it's going to show up here. If you want to see our version from July, which has a lot of this content, it's going to be right here. But then it does not, unfortunately, have some of the new stuff. Good luck. Let us know how we can